to talk about something. I think you're the perfect person to chat about with it, actually. The NFL, I guess, is either testing or thinking about getting into position-specific helmets. I don't know if you heard about this or not. So in the positions, I would assume that involve a lot of head-to-head combat, they have a different helmet than maybe a skill position that doesn't have as much contact. Kevin Seifert? Mr. Kev from ESPN,
of course,
at SEIFERT ESPN, a guy who has been very diligent about reporting for a long time at this point. News: NFL, NFLPA approved a position-specific helmet for the first time. The zero, right, is for offensive line, defensive line. It's a specific helmet. It has bumpers installed where they often receive hits that cause concussions. VICIS used engineering data provided by NFL. The model ranks number 2 on the NFL, NFLPA safety poster. Why do they not have the helmet that's number 1 then? NFL, NFLPA have also been working on a QB-specific helmet, but it won't be finalized until engineers get a look at new coach, quarterback, speaker technology the league is adding. So there's these super intelligent people that maybe had no idea that one day their life would end up being in the football world, but because of the amount of money and technology needed, they are there. These engineers potentially thought they were going to build rocket ships and go to fucking space. Instead, they are trying to solve the concussion issue in the NFL. There's a lot of testing that happens with these things. I remember they laid out a whole new set of helmets after the original lawsuits that happened from former players. How do you feel about the position-specific idea? I think this is smart, obviously, but I would assume players might feel differently.
I guess I would just have to try it out and see what it feels like. So you're telling me O-line, D-line, they have bumpers installed. They have a lot of like head-to-head contact, I guess, every single play, like short distance. But okay, so then what does the second level have? What's different about the linebacker? Something he has running collisions a lot more than D lineman and O lineman have.
Well, I would assume that the data that was provided to them by the NFL said that something that may be an additional bumper, because linebackers potentially, because you guys use your helmets as a weapon, because you guys just hate the fact that the game is evolving. You absolutely hate it at linebacker position. But I would assume maybe it's more. Maybe it's a different impact spot. Maybe it's a tighter spot than what the offensive line is. And maybe the offensive line one's just the first one that they try to specialize. I'm not saying that, but isn't this all feel for players? Like Antonio Brown almost quit the NFL because he couldn't wear the helmet that he wanted. He's not the only one, by the way, that is very, very, hey, I like my helmet how I like my helmet. It's uncomfortable. Helmets are uncomfortable. That's just what they are. But then once you get used to one, it's a big deal. And that's a massive part of football, right, AJ?
It's a huge part of football, I think. It's always tough when you have to try out a new helmet and try to break it in. Some of them just don't break in. Some of the newer ones, I remember that they had me try sometimes in OTAs, or just there's a few helmets they had me try on. And I was like, absolutely not. I could never wear this thing. Some of the new ones just feel awful. Obviously, they look terrible, but if they help your head, whatever. I just don't know. Like when you have a list of 45 helmets and you rank them from top to bottom, I'm like, all right, well then let's get rid of 44 of them and just keep the top one then. If that one is safer for you, why aren't they all wearing that?
Well, and I think it's because a lot of players have said, I'm going to choose not to wear that one because it is absurd to look at.
That looks awful, by the way,
yes,
that helmet. That
it's absurd to look at. It looks like a space shuttle, like a space helmet. Oh, my God.
Halo.
But, guys, hey, by the way, this is going to test. The NFL almost has this in like a closed Sicilian here.
Ooh.
Because if the players come out and they say, I'm not wearing that, the NFL will come out and say, it's the safest. Player safety is paramount. That's all we worry about with every single decision we make. And the players are like, well, we like these helmets instead. They're like, well, it's not as safe. That would become that would become a thing, AJ. That would become an entire thing because that's exactly what the NFL lawyers would say. And it would be like, well, don't you guys care about your own safety? Isn't that kind of, oh, no. It's inevitable, isn't it? I just feel like it's inevitable now at this point.
It's just another negotiating tactic that they have on the table for both sides. Now, who knows how much the players want to fight against it, but I know they've made people switch out helmets. Didn't Tom Brady had to switch out from his old school helmet, didn't he, recently over the last year or two?
I think they made Vinatieri even had to switch out of like his helmet that he had for a long time, even at the kicker position when he was only kicking field goals. So the only time he would ever get mixed up is potential a blocked field goal, which he did, and we did, by the way. It was awesome. I saw Vinatieri in the middle of some action. I was like, my guy. He's like, yeah, it's nice to, kind of feel young again, but he was fucking so pissed about the block. I took his strap off, did the whole thing, but